Those getting breakfast, feel free to eat while we're talking. And what? No, we'll call you up. I'll do the. I'll call you up. Everything good up here?
Yes, so you have the clicker, yeah, you have everything.
So. That's what I do for a living.
Okay. Well, you will be surprised. Okay, so this is your first presentation, and you're not doing the next
No,
slide.
the next one is nothing. Good morning, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Vice Mayor Vicki Veenker, Deputy Mayor of Los Angeles, the Honorable Nancy Sutley, Professor Kathryn Stoner, head of the CDDRL, Noah Efron, representative of the Tel Aviv City Council. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming to our conference. My name is Alon, and I am a visiting professor and visiting Israel fellow here at the Stanford Center for Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law. And I'm so honored and delighted to open up this conference on climate resilience and local government policy, lessons from Los Angeles and Tel Aviv. Start with some general comments before I move to the program itself. When we look back, I think one of the crowning achievements ecologically of the last 70, 80 years, at least where I'm from, is the restoration of the forests of the land of Israel, forests that had been basically extirpated, 97% of them, over the centuries that followed the Roman exile. And through a lot of hard work and trial and error, we have managed to restore a lot of those woodlands. And it's quite an impressive achievement. But even the conscientious and resourceful foresters of my country could not anticipate climate change. You know, May 17th, last week, was the hottest day ever recorded in Israel in the merry month of May, 113 degrees. And that followed the driest winter in the country's history. And so those of us who work in the climate space were not surprised when actually about a month ago on the Holocaust Memorial Day, we had the largest forest fire in Israeli history. 10,000 dunams of land were erased. And then a week later on our Memorial Day, again, the largest fire in the country's history, this time 20,000 dunams lost. And these, if we're trying to compare calamities, these numbers seem trivial when you compare it to what the people of Los Angeles endured and other countries, what we've seen happening in Canada and Russia from out the world. And I could have started my remarks talking about flooding. I mean, we're still in a year where we haven't forgotten what happened in Hurricane Helene. 159 people lost their lives in that terrible event, and that was nothing compared to what was happening in Spain, where hundreds passed away, which followed Germany. And when we take our suffering in the developed world and we compare to what's happening there, it also seems quite small. Not so long ago, a third of Pakistan was underwater, 33 million people were displaced, thousands passed away, and we don't even know how many people were lost in the recent floods in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But if I'm going to share with you my own catastrophic nightmares and angst, it's actually global warming itself, it's heat. Because you see, in the Middle East, it's gotten so hot that the difference between life and death in many cities is an air conditioner. On May 24th, this week, in the United Arab Emirates, they shattered their own record, 125 degrees in May. Imagine what's awaiting them in August. So these are terrible things, and there's human consequences. This is also a year when 1,300 hopeful and spiritually inspired Muslims went on the Hajj to Saudi Arabia. Some of them didn't have their visas organized. They couldn't get hotel rooms. They said, Malesh, I'll sleep on the side of the road. And they didn't survive. 1,300 just died of heat exposure. So these are very, very serious issues. And the thing is, when we think about it, that the climate crisis, it's here, ready or not. And the problem is, we're not. Although we have known for some time the kind of things we need to do in terms of policy, if it's in the fire area we talked about, we know we need to do a better job of setting standards for fuel reduction and removing the vegetation and all the flammable materials on the interface between wildlands and urban spaces. And we know we need to make our infrastructure more robust and take the transformers and upgrade them and have emergency weather stoppage protocols in places. But we're not doing it the way we should. We're not planning the way we might be able to do. We know that we need to do a better job of coordinating between different agencies. But when I take my own takeaway from the recent events, it's this: the cities that have to respond to this climate crisis have not been given the tools they need and the resources they need to respond. And the truth of the matter is, the lesson of Los Angeles in this country to me was that cities are on their own to a large extent. And so it's very important that we figure out how to respond in the best, most professional and effective way. Now, I've been around the climate policy world for a while. A couple of decades ago, when climate skepticism was still an intellectually defensible position, one of the mantras that we always used to put forward was the so-called no regrets position. In other words, even if we don't know for sure about the climate getting warmer, these are things we should do. You know, solar panels are going to be cleaner and cheaper, turbines as well. Electric cars are going to be better and quieter, so we should do these anyway. And that's really true in the mitigation area, but in the adaptation and the climate resilience area, it's not so clear. I mean, for sure, planting more trees has always been a good thing. If you just get your contingency valuations organized, that makes sense, always has. But some things like burying power lines or the kind of heroic efforts we need to stop sea level rise or to address sea level rise, that's very expensive. So we have to make sure we are addressing the right problems and do the worst things first. So I'm looking forward to this conference, and as we think globally, really focusing on acting locally. Before I wrap up, I want to sort of address the open letter that was published yesterday, and of course the people in the vigils outside. I think it would be important to do that. So let me just say this. Look, I can only speak for myself, but a day does not go by when I am not acutely aware and deeply troubled by the dozens of hostages that are still in a horrible captivity after 600 days. And I'm also very aware of the unspeakable suffering that's happening in Gaza and the damage humans and to the environment. And I imagine that pretty much all the participants in this conference, just like the vast majority of world leaders, just like the vast majority of Israelis, strongly support an immediate ceasefire and release of the hostages immediately. But that's why those values, that commitment to human rights, coexistence, intergenerational justice, is just the reason that we need to continue to research, to learn together, and to act to address the climate crisis. I mean, climate change and environmental protection is far too a significant challenge to leave it as a spectator sport or something that can be truncated in a time of war. I know in the last 2 months, I think my wife and I have run 50 times to bomb shelters as, you know, ballistic missiles that could take away a city block were hurled at us. But it didn't change anything because climate change doesn't care, it's not waiting. And the consequences of global warming are waiting for us. So let's get to work and have a wonderful conference. Thank you so much again for coming. I'll just sort of briefly shepherd you through what's going to be happening over the next 2 days. We are delighted. We're going to have a couple of greetings, and we're delighted to be able to have a few dignitaries to say a few words of their thoughts. And then we'll have 2 keynote addresses by the Honorable Nancy Sutley from the Los Angeles City Council, the deputy mayor who is in charge of energy and sustainability, and then Noah Efron, responsible for the city council member from Tel Aviv, responsible for their environmental committee. And then we'll start with the professional panels. We'll talk first about the water management challenge that climate change poses to cities around the world. And then after the break, we'll talk a bit about thermal comfort, heat, trees, and all those important issues. After lunch, we're going to have a split session where we will hear about that critical issue of financing the efforts that are so critical for responding to the climate crisis. And this room will literally divide in half. This is the east half, this is the west. I don't know if you guys felt that you're in the west coast, best coast, but that's where you are. And you will talk about sea level rise. So we'll give a split session. Then after the break, we will have sessions about forest fire prevention. CAL FIRE will be here, and many sundry experts. And then at 5 o'clock, and I hope you're paying attention, we have our field trips, because there's nothing more discouraging to me than spend 2 days in an academic conference and never get outside the PowerPoint syndrome. So we are going to have 4 different options, and I'm going to sort of present them to you now, and maybe we'll recapitulate as the afternoon goes on. So first of all, I want to make a strong pitch for the energy efficiency innovations here at Stanford campus at our central energy facility. There are some people here who claim, and they would know better than me, that this is the most energy efficient campus in the world, and it's really worth it to see Dr. Lincoln Blevins is the head of that initiative, and he's giving us generously of his time. The bus that takes people there, because it's about 1.5 miles away, we are on a farm, and it takes a while to get places, but right next there is the O'Donoghue Family Stanford Educational Farm, a remarkable, relatively new educational initiative, 6 acres here. Gordon Blue, my friend and colleague, will be taking people there and showing them there and students and seeing what that is all about. I think it's a really interesting option. Now, it turns out that Stanford has for many years had an ecologist and natural historian as on the faculty, and Dr. Alon Launer is going to take people from here on a walking tour on a nature walk through the Stanford campus, starting with the peregrine falcons who are in the Hoover Tower and the owls that are in the Oval, and all kinds of fascinating fun facts about nature on campus. And finally, if those options weren't enough, my star student from this past semester, Vaughn Hapitian, I'm sorry for butchering his name. Anyways, Vaughn spent much of his sophomore year as one of those Stanford guides who walks backwards as prospective freshmen come and hear what's going on campus. And if you want to get the prospective Stanford pitch and hear all that fascinating heritage about Stanford, Vaughn is very articulate, and he's agreed to do that for us. So that's your 4 options for that. And then we're going to reconvene at 6:15 for an outdoor reception. Dinner will be served at 7, and then we'll have our evening event. That's the bus that's going to take the 2 buses. There's 2 of the tours are on buses and 2 are not. And then we have our evening program. This is an opportunity to recognize Larry Diamond, who is the sort of the force behind this new initiative to have an Israel Fellows Program and Studies Program on campus. And he will be hosting and in conversation with Professor Stephen Chu, who probably needs no introduction in an audience like this, Nobel Prize winner in physics, former Secretary of Energy in the Obama administration, and a venerable professor here at Stanford. So he will be sharing his IMAs. And that's, as we say, Vahi Erev, Vahi Boker Yom Chamishi. That's today's sort of schedule. And then day 2, as we move on tomorrow, we'll have a session on climate justice, take a break. And once again, split panels. One will be here talking about civil society, and then there will be a panel on what climate tech can do to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our climate, and then a delicious lunch. And then between 1:30 and 3, we'll have a final panel and then open discussion where people can share their thoughts as we like this. I want to mention that the presentations that you're going to hear are excellent and important to hear, but they also hopefully will be picked up in a new special issue of the International Academic Journal Sustainability, which is making a special issue based on the lectures at our conference, and we're grateful to them for their willingness to give a platform for that. I also neglected to say that at today's lunch, there's a side room, and there are several professionals and experts from Los Angeles and several professionals and experts from Tel Aviv, and we're giving you a private room to talk shop for lunch. Just come back to the afternoon sessions on time, because I'm sure it'll be very interesting. Before I wrap up, I just want to give a couple of thanks. Tel Aviv University has been a wonderful partner. We have 10 faculty members here that they've sponsored. We're grateful for that. Full disclosure, that's my home university back in Israel. The city of Palo Alto gave us a wonderful tour yesterday with their sustainability team. We saw all kinds of innovative activities, and we're very grateful for their friendship and partnership as well. The Jewish Climate Trust, which is a new initiative, Nigel Savage, who is the director, and Galit Cohen is the Israeli director, are here, and they have sponsored and supported participants. And the Glazer Foundation, Jeff Nyman is here from this very important Los Angeles-based foundation. We're grateful as well. Finally, Hillel at Stanford has been helpful with transportation. And I want to spend a minute or two just taking a moment to thank the team at CDDRL, who's been so supportive of this conference, worked so hard to make it happen. We really pushed and strained the resources, and they met the crowds. Lisa Schoenberg, are you here, Lisa? So there she is in the back. I think we can give her all a round of applause for her efforts. And Nora Sulatz, who's been just a wealth of institutional memory and advice about publicity and events. I don't know if Nora's here, but there she is. Nora, thank you so much. My colleague, I'd say colleague, but now he's a close friend, Amichai Magen, who is an Israel fellow like me in CDDRL, has just been encouraging and held my hand throughout. So thank you, Amichai. And the inimitable Larry Diamond, without whom none of this would happen. And so we all have him. And now we move forward to our first speaker. Professor Kathryn Stone is the director of the Center of Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law at Stanford University, a renowned scholar in the field, a political scientist. Before she came to Stanford, she did 9 years at that New Jersey University called Princeton, but she finally came over here. And we're really grateful to her for letting the center be a home to this conference and the fellows program. And I just would say that in addition to her exceptional scholarship, I think it's widely understood that Kathryn Stoner has the best sense of humor of any faculty member at Stanford. So give it up for Kathryn Stoner, who will say a few words.
Thanks, Alon. Now two surprises. One is that picture. Wow. And I don't have my Madonna headset today, so as you can see there. I feel a lot of pressure now to be very funny. But actually, as one of my sons said, consider the peer group, Mom, in terms of funny professors at Stanford. So hurtful, but unfortunately. Thank you very much, Alon. Thank you for coming here. Thank you, Alon, for all the work that you have put into organizing this conference. I know it certainly wasn't easy. It took a great deal of your time here, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you to our friends from Israel for traveling all this way. I heard that you had a wonderful tour of Palo Alto yesterday. You've seen things I've not seen in Palo Alto, so I look forward to doing that someday too. I know we're going to have a wonderful few days. I have the easiest job at this conference, which is just thanking everyone, which Alon has already done, especially to our staff who are all hanging around in the back. Oh, and Elisa is over here. Alon flashed their photos up. Thank you to Amichai, to Larry Diamond as well. And I'll just say one or two quick words about the program that brings you all here, which is our visiting fellows program in Israel Studies, which is based at the center that I direct, the Center on Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law. I'm the Mosbacher director, which my predecessor as director told me, you must always say you are the Mosbacher director of the Center on Democracy, Development, and the Rule of Law. And Larry Diamond is the Mosbacher Senior Fellow as well. We are honorary Mosbachers according to the Mosbacher family. The Israel Visiting Fellows Program is hosted at our center, and we're very proud to do so. I encourage you to take a look at the website of the Center on Democracy Development and the Rule of Law. And you'll see a lot of the research that we do there, and also some of the visitors that we have hosted, including Alon and Amikai in the last several years. We have another up in our sister center for international security and cooperation, Ori Rabinowitz, as well. But essentially here, what we try to do is bridge the worlds of scholarship and practice to try to understand the conditions for effective representative governance, for balanced and sustainable economic growth, of which the environment is obviously an integral part, and the rule of law. We do this all over the world, including other parts of the Middle East than looking at Israel, but we're very much looking forward to expanding our Israel Visiting Fellows program into an Israel Studies program here at Stanford, and that is largely due to the force of nature that I was sitting next to, my friend Larry Diamond, who I always call the Lord of Liberty, but really is the Doctor of Democracy. And so I want to give a special thanks and shout out to Larry as well, since we all owe actually being here today and tomorrow primarily to Larry's efforts. So with that, I get to hand over the microphone, right? I don't like to do that, but I will. Thank you, Alon.
Sure. Thank you, Kathryn. I think it actually makes a lot of sense that a Center for Democracy and Governance would host a climate resilience, because so much what we have to talk about, I think, is shifting some of the authorities and resources from the central governments to local governments, but we'll leave that to the deliberations. Our next speaker, when I called up the mayor of, wrote an email to the mayor of Palo Alto and asked him if he wanted to greet the conference, he said, no, not me. Vicki Veenker, the vice mayor of Palo Alto, who chairs the city's Climate and Sustainability Committee, she should be welcoming the speakers. An attorney with a rich legal background has recently turned her talents to sustainability issues. So Vicki, I don't see you here. There you are. So welcome aboard, Vicki, and I want to thank once again Palo Alto for your incredible hospitality.
Well, thank you, Professor Tall. I've got to get a photo like Professor Stoner's. That's impressive. And you didn't even give it to him. Well, I don't have a photo, but I do have a fun fact. I have been outside patent counsel to Stanford University since 1989. And please don't do the math on that, but it's been a long time. As was mentioned, for climate resilience, I bring both local and regional government perspectives, telescoping out from the Climate and Sustainability Committee that I chair here in the city of Palo Alto. I also sit on the county's Commission on Recycling and Waste Reduction. And for those who aren't familiar with our county, it extends from Palo Alto and the Bay over to the Pacific Coast and down to San Jose and a little beyond. But I also serve as vice chair of the board for the Bay Area Air District, which covers all 9 counties around the Bay and all 3 of our major metropolitan areas. So your topic today is one about which I care deeply. Palo Alto has over 50 years of climate leadership based on a long environmental tradition. We were protecting our natural environment back in the 1970s when we designated the area on the Bayshore as parkland and began building one of the most extensive urban tree canopies in the state. Well, of course, our city is named for a tree, so that's a fit. In climate, we started early. We are a city well known for innovation. And so we experimented with rooftop solar back in the 1980s, long before the California Solar Initiative. We committed to energy efficiency in the 1980s and 90s, and in the early 2000s, we began buying utility scale renewable energy even before there were renewable portfolio standard requirements in California. From there, we achieved zero net carbon for our energy portfolio by 2013. And by 2017, we were using only hydroelectric power and new California renewable sources. Today, we have the ambitious goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% relative to 1990 levels by 2030. Yeah, we call them our 80 by 30 goals. We're not there yet, but we are about halfway and we are optimistic. Our community members have been key to every one of our milestones. We enjoy broad support from local advocates. We have both a youth climate advisory board, which is terrific. If you haven't worked with high school youth these days, they are smarter than we are. And we also have a wonderful community working group that includes some of Palo Alto's many retired engineers and professors who have turned their substantial skills and expertise to supporting our climate programs. And in addition to their good ideas, they're also good at pushing us to work smarter, better, and faster. So, and thanks to the broad community support that Palo Alto enjoys, we have some of the highest EV and building electrification adoption rates in the state. In 2023, new car purchases by Californians were 52% electric vehicles. And you can tell that just by driving around town, and I'm sure it's higher now. To achieve building electrification, we've experimented with approaches that go beyond incentives, providing people with hands-on assistance to help them with the technical aspects of electrification, permitting, and even finding contractors. We've provided financing. Sometimes we do on-bill financing, and have done a lot of outreach to let our residents know about these new steps. So today, your day one theme has you looking at environmental cooperation initiatives. And we have great partners throughout the Bay Area. There are regional bodies such as community choice aggregators for energy. And Palo Alto has partnered with a lot of CCAs to develop help to enable large numbers of people to electrify. And that's even more important as the air districts, first in the nation, no NOx appliance rules come into effect that will preclude purchase of a NOx emitting gas water heater in 2027 and NOx emitting furnaces 2 years after that. So another of Palo Alto's strengths is that we own our own utilities, all of them, including municipal electric and gas. And owning our own utilities has allowed us to act as a proving ground for strategies that others can adopt, such as modernizing our electric grid and studying how to manage our gas utility through a decline in gas as we electrify. So given the city's innovation culture and resources, we feel a responsibility to go first, to try things, to learn things that would help others. For example, we are proud that Palo Alto's first of its kind full service heat pump water heater program helped replace 590 gas water heaters with electric heat pump water heaters. That represents about 20% of the estimated annual turnover. Importantly, it includes a low income component. So that has allowed us to provide heat pump water heaters for free to eligible low income households. And in just the last few months, our new whole home electrification program has resulted in 35 heat pump HVACs and 5 gas meter removal projects in process. So finally, the topic for this section of the program is, as was mentioned, global context, local action, and that is such an important perspective. It is local actors who implement climate action programs, who install public EV chargers, provide waste recycling programs, and electrify buildings. But sharing our know-how globally is what will help us be smarter and increase our impact. And because climate change and its impact do not respect human-made boundaries, it's important that we also consider the broader context, including the wildfires in LA and implications of the war in Gaza. At the Air District, we recently adopted an environmental justice strategic plan for the entire Bay Area, given that the impacts of climate change often hit our most vulnerable the hardest. I'm glad to see that environmental justice will be part of the discussions at this conference over the next couple of days. As we know, in addition to the heartbreaking and tragic human suffering, there are significant environmental consequences for those throughout Southern California from the fires and for both Israelis and Palestinians from the war. I would hate to see these things undermine the good climate resilient efforts by both of the cities represented here today. So thank you, Professor Tall, for convening this important discussions, and thank you all for your commitment to the very important issue of climate resilience. Thank you. Oh, sure.